with me? May the words of our hearts and the words I've prepared today be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. In the last, 15 something years, my ministry has been in the nonprofit sector, in higher education and family homelessness, and now at a nonprofit training organization. And you can't work in the nonprofit sector without learning a thing or two about fundraising. Even if you weren't hired as a professional fundraiser, everybody on the team is a de facto fundraiser, especially in late fall, which is gala season for most nonprofits. Fall is when nonprofits are doing their final fundraising for year-end gifts. And one particular year, our gala was an undersold event right up until the last few weeks before the event. And then it became an oversold event. So oversold that we had reached the max room capacity for the venue and had to limit staff participation in order to have enough seats for guests. The event went really well, despite the stress that it caused for our fundraising staff, who scrambled to fill seats and then empty them and make room for more seats. The event eventually raised nearly twice as much as the top earning event that the organization had had. So it was the highest earning event in its 30-year history, and it was really amazing accomplishment. And lots of decisions go into planning a gala, and I learned this because my cube was next to the gala, the event planner's cube, so I learned more than I needed to know. But chief among these decisions that you have to make are seating arrangements. It's very important that guests sit next to somebody that they know, which makes a lot of sense because every party is more fun when you have somebody to talk to. But it's not just who they know, sitting next to somebody who you know, but also sitting next to somebody that you can influence. So maybe friends of friends or acquaintances or people who work in the same kind of fields. And it's important that they're seated together because it's human nature to not want to be outdone by the person next to you, especially if that's somebody that you want to impress. And then I also learned that a lot of consideration is given to auction items. And you have to have something that your audience will enjoy doing, like vacation homes in the Alps or expensive yachts or Broadway tickets or something. And it's not only important that the experience is something people would enjoy, but who donated it is very important. Because it's not just the experience, but it's who made it possible, and that person is somebody everybody else, recognizes and respects. And those are just two of the rhetorical decisions that go into planning a successful fundraising event that will persuade people to give their financial resources. But even before you can have a successful fundraising event, you have to have a cause and a mission that people will find compelling. In our case, it was hard to argue with the need for children to have a safe place to call home. And our organization had a 30-year history in the community and a 4-star charity navigator rating for using our financial resources well. So we had a lot going for us. And it's the mission of an organization that gets guests to come to a gala in the first place. People give to people, not to causes, as the old fundraising adage says. This famous story of the loaves and fishes sounds a lot like some of the fundraising rhetoric I've been soaking in over the last many years. People are following Jesus around, having heard of the miraculous things that he's done, and he has a compelling mission. He attracts a crowd. And it's coming on towards Passover, and people are thinking about their, religious obligations. The timing is right. The crowd is large, and the disciples realize they do not have enough resources to feed this group. Philip says they would need more than 6 months' wages. This is a ridiculous idea to feed a crowd this size. But Andrew notices a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But that's hardly enough. But using some of these fundraising tactics that I've mentioned, Jesus gets them all to sit down. Hopefully they have a friend or two in the crowd. Everybody's comfortable. There's plenty of grass. It's a congenial atmosphere. And there's more than enough space, because that's something we learned. People have to be comfortable. Jesus takes out the loaves and fishes from the boy. It's important to have gifts that come from someone people will recognize or will remember, and children are very memorable. And they usually give freely of what they have, so this is shaping up to be a good event. Jesus shows the people the loaves and the fishes, blesses them, distributes them, and what happens? Well, nobody wants to be outdone by a child, so when the bread comes my way, maybe I put in the bread that I brought with me, because certainly you would have not left home to follow an itinerant preacher without a snack. So I put in the bread, and then next to me, somebody remembers that little bit of fish that they brought along with them for their snack, and so they put it in, and not wanting to be outdone, the person next to them puts in their snack. And before you know it, everyone pitches in a little bit of what they have, especially when they see the person next to them give theirs, and there's more than enough. There was always more than enough. It's just that no one wanted to admit that there was more than enough, and no one wanted to risk giving up their resources to the rest of the community. When the loaves and fishes stayed in their satchels, there never could have been enough for everyone. One person could never have had enough to share with 5,000 people, but 5,000 people had more than enough to share together. In fact, they had leftovers. The Monday after our gala, all those years ago, our development director sent a congratulatory email thanking for everyone for their months of hard work and the collective effort to raise money for children. And she expressed her pride and gratitude for the great outcome of the gala. And later that afternoon, after everybody had replied all, thanking her and her team and those that worked closely with her, our CEO replied to the whole staff, and the first line of his email read, "Unfortunately, the children we serve still face so much adversity and risk." It's great that we as individuals have enough. It's better if we can trust that our resources are plentiful enough to share with the whole community. But even after we've decided to give and decided to trust that we have enough to give, we have to get up and do something. Money doesn't solve homelessness. People solve homelessness. People have to make the kind of community where no one ever has to sleep in a car or on the street or in an overcrowded apartment. We have to decide that it's not enough to give financially. We actually have to create the world we want to live in. Earlier, the children gave you all a gift of goldfish crackers. These are small snacks, and I invite you, if you haven't already, to open them and have some. You can, I promise it's okay, you can eat in the sanctuary. I actually got approval before this. And even if I didn't, I'm new here, so I'm likely to have some grace, right? A little social capital. I invite you to open them and have some. This is a kind of meal sharing in my Wesleyan tradition that is called a love feast. And it's intended to recall all the meals that Jesus had shared with his disciples and people in ministry that express the kind of community and fellowship that is enjoyed by the family of Christ. And when I worked in children's ministry, I would share feasts just like this one with the children every single week. Crackers and water. And we always called it a feast. That's always the language we would use. And it takes only one precocious child to recognize that there isn't anything particularly feast-like about crackers and water. These are perhaps the most ubiquitous snacks of childhood. But I always tell the children that it wasn't what we ate that made it a feast. It was who we shared it with that made it a feast. So I want you to look around this morning and notice who is here that makes your simple snack a feast. Take a minute, look around, think about what makes this community special. Why did you get out of bed on a beautiful morning, it's supposed to be 70 out today, to come here? Several months ago, I had the pleasure of visiting your congregation space and touring these beautiful grounds. And Reverend Horman and a group of your leaders shared with me a vision to use these magnificent grounds to do new ministry. Maybe affordable housing. Maybe creating a safe community space for seniors. Maybe a place for others to call home. Just a spark of an idea. Not yet a full-fledged plan. But what stayed with me after that visit was how much this congregation has already pooled their resources to share their wealth and their community. And now this congregation stands at the threshold of a much bigger possibility. What if we shared ourselves? That's the question I heard Reverend Foreman asking and the leaders of your congregation asking. What if we took a leap of faith to actually create the world in which we want to live? As you eat your goldfish crackers, take a second look around in the sanctuary and notice who isn't here that would make this feast that much more joyous and celebratory. Who is missing from your community? Where is their representation lacking? Who maybe doesn't feel welcome yet? Who hasn't received a welcome? How can you create the world right here at Union Congregational Church where a love feast will feed the whole community? I invite you to consider how you could renew your commitment to this family of Christians. No community is perfect, but what does this community lack? What remains to be built or created? Consider what you could do and what you have to support your community so that together you can have the kind of community that everyone wants to live in. Amen.